It's been a couple months since the release of Marvel's sensational Hellfire Gala issue. If you still haven't read the chaos that took place in that issue, check out our short after this video to get more of an idea. Anyway, the point of bringing up that issue was to talk about one of the few survivors of the mutants and to make the case that she might possibly be way better as a villain than as a hero. For those who have read the Hellfire Gala, when I say Kitty Rip Your Heart Out Pryde is the character we're talking about, it should come to no surprise as to why. Those who are out of the loop, we gotcha. For anyone who does not know much about Shadowkat, you may be thinking, how could someone that only goes through walls make a good villain? Well, true, she's definitely not the most powerful X-Men character, but she could still do some serious damage with her abilities. Her powers have been used in some creatively brutal and lethal ways, so allow us to paint a nice visual of just how badass Shadowkat can be as a villain. Kitty Pryde, aka Shadowkat, is, as everyone probably knows already, part of the mutant group, the X-Men. From since she was a youngin', she was partially raised, mostly trained by her second family. Along with her X-Men training, she was also trained, and we use that term loosely, by Wolverine's old master Ogun. Well, more like possessed and brainwashed by his spirit to kill Wolverine, but she got the skills all the same. The combination of both schools of training and knowledge, plus some of her incredible feats, could actually make the case that she is now one of X-Men's most dangerous and formidable members, even before the mass genocide. This knowledge, mixed with some imagination, is how we will give Kitty Pryde a whole new villain makeover. Shadowkat had her entire life guided by her tenure with the X-Men, but after getting possessed by the Swordmaster Ogun, Kitty Pryde connected to much darker aspects of her soul. This was particularly important for her growth because Shadowkat had a drastic attitude change. And by drastic, I mean lethal. She would eventually try to move past all of that, but just keep watching. There are hundreds of comics about the X-Men that follows her development since her inception, but nothing will quite capture who Kitty Pryde is now better than her most recent show of power in the pages of the X-Men issue 25. We're all aware of the near-fatal blow Marvel's mutants were dealt during the 2023 Hellfire Gala, where Orchis lost a surprise attack against Krakoa, slaughtering almost all of mutant kind. Even the most powerful X-Men characters are all gone. Nimrod made them his, playthings to be politically correct, but you know what I want to say. The remaining survivors are on the run and in hiding. But Kitty Pryde, who unlike everyone else has taken up a brutal and dark revenge mission. And trust the words dark and brutal are not being used lightly in any way. She tried to leave the darkness behind, but ended up entering right back into it. In a scene, we see her surrounded by a squad of Orchis agents. She starts off by giving them the ultimatum to stand down. See, now quickly getting off track, if she was a villain, there wouldn't have been any formalities at all. With that statement, she was showing her last sliver of hero-like behavior. Villain Shadowkat is giving all the smoke from the jump and annoyed at the fact that these inferiors are in her presence and threatening her. Now back to the Orchis agents. Oh, they're pretty confident because they just watched the mutants be reduced to almost nothing. They should have planned their move a lot better, because nothing is more dangerous than backing a person into a corner. Things more often than not tend to get ugly. Reminder, Kitty was trained by Ogun, the same ninja master that trained Wolverine. So, you see where the ugly is about to come in now. Well, the Orchis agents clearly didn't know this, and what took place next was definitely the most savage and frankly disrespectful display of phasing powers ever displayed by her. She ended up putting one soldier's head up another one's ass, which doesn't get any more graphic and honestly villainous than that. The commander of the Orchis agents was first up on the chopping block. He put a pistol to Kitty's head, and that didn't go at all as he expected. She begins the carnage by first phasing the commander's pistol into his brain, which pretty much sets off a chain reaction for all that follows after. She goes on to phase some soldiers into solid objects, and even phase some soldiers together. And since she's decided that she wasn't on enough savage already, she proceeds to punch a guy's heart out, and then goes on to phasing grenades into the bodies of other soldiers. After making the area a horror scene of blood, innards, and dismembered body parts, she kindly proceeds to phase all the corpses into the ground. In some twisted way, you could say this is still hero-like behavior because she at least cleaned up after herself and technically gave them a burial. Now, if she was a villain, she's going to leave them out there to rot, which, considering the circumstances, maybe would have been better. I personally am an anti-hero on my best day. This was all villain-like behavior, but she only killed them because she was avenging her fallen mutants and family, but the potential is still there nonetheless. Throughout the history of Marvel Comics, mutants have often been treated quite badly. so she really has every right to decide to go rogue. The fall of X is literally the third mutant holocaust after all. It's been honestly quite disrespectful how the writers are doing the mutants at this point. But if she as a hero could easily kill a bunch of soldiers in such a brutal way just because she's having a bad day, what lengths would she go to as a villain? Or better question, what could she do if she decided she's had enough bad days? Now her powers maybe wouldn't change most likely, but who knows? Actually, her psyche could have an effect on how her mutant powers continue to develop later in life, especially if she fully were to adopt the villain mindset. Ultimately, what separates the hero-villain character is their ideology and moral codes of what they will and will not do. That's why, in my opinion, anti-heroes are the best, because they're a nice mesh of both worlds, but moving on. No morals to stop her from trying to eliminate all of her ops, and honestly, once that restraint is broken, the potential to do real harm skyrockets. And that's not even all of it. She has more moments like this. Quick PSA, for more great comic book content like this, you gotta like and subscribe and check out our other videos. Let's increase our channel population and traffic, unlike the mutants. I know, I don't have to say it. Anyway, continuing on the how Shadowcat is a fire villain case, we bring Emma Frost to the stand. Frost and Kitty Pryde have had a complicated relationship. However, in recent years, Kitty and Frost became allies. In fact, we could even go so far as calling them friends. Their partnership kind of mended years of bitter rivalry. However, in What If, Astonishing X-Men, their rivalry had a much different ending, and more violent one. In this Astonishing X-Men storyline, where Jean Grey was resurrected instead of Colossus, Jean's return didn't sit well at all with Frost, who had only just begun a relationship with Cyclops. So, in obvious fashion, that made Frost quite jealous. Well, this story got quickly out of hand after Emma's jealousy was used against her by Cassandra Nova. Nova is Xavier's evil twin spirit, FYI. Story for another day. Nova manipulated Frost into bonding with the Phoenix Force, which led to the destruction of the alien planet Breakworld and her attacking her fellow X-Men. She had to be taken down, and if you're paying any attention, Shadowcat was the one to do it. And in usual Kitty Pryde fashion, she does so in the most brutal way she could think of. Shadowcat literally phases her hands through Emma's chest, reaches right in for her heart, and rips it out like in those old Alien movies. She is killed afterward from the explosion released by the Phoenix Force, but she was able to take down quite a formidable opponent. And what makes a good villain, also, is who you're capable of taking down. Kitty Pryde isn't the most powerful or important member of the X-Men, but she knows how to get things done. This next piece of evidence will also help prove her competence at villainy. We all know Kitty Pryde and Wolverine are pretty close, right? Which is great and all, but Shadowcat was once forced to kill her mentor. In a different What If issue this time, What If Wolverine, Enemy of the State, Wolverine actually lost control. In this story, Logan was never reprogrammed as a killer. Working alongside Hydra and the Hand, Wolverine becomes the ultimate Avengers killer, murdering most of Earth's so-called mightiest heroes. Well, the heroes had to take a stand, so they formulated a plan to reprogram and stop Wolverine. This plan, of course, goes horribly awry and only leads to more deaths. Wolverine somehow got to both Magneto and Captain America, but when he eventually turned to Kitty, she actually tried reasoning with him. However, that was completely futile. He was gone and Kitty realized that, so she had to do something extreme to stop him. So Shadowcat, as usual, comes up with another absolutely filthy way to take him out. She phases her hand, not through his chest this time, but through his head, and cuts it clean off, killing him instantly. Being able to cut Wolverine's head off is quite an accomplishment, and even more so because it was not expected from her. If she had the guts to kill her mentor, someone she cared about in such a way, everyone else is cannon fodder at this point. Villains, in a sense, are able to do a lot of things heroes can't do, sometimes just because their moral code doesn't allow them to. Our heroes sacrifice their loved ones for the masses, or just always have to choose against what they want. Maybe villains are actually heroes and heroes are villains at times. Some of them, not all. I mean, there are some villains that are off the rocker for sure. The point is, Kitty has been able to show deadly versatility and capability with her powers, the resolve to take down loved ones, and basically can have zero Fs to give if pushed to that point. In fact, even Marvel knows that she'd make a pretty good villain. In usual comic book fashion, every hero and villain has variants throughout the multiverse, and Kitty Pryde is no different. Kitty Pryde of Earth 23238 is literally a crime boss who's ruling the world with an iron fist. There's a variant of Kitty that was able to not only phase, but absorb all of Wolverine's memories and powers. She ended up with one of his adamantium claws on her hand, and as time passed, she also began to develop his heightened senses and healing factor. She literally became a combination of two characters. She has stopped the Phoenix Force and Wolverine once with only her phasing abilities, So how do you think that story would turn out with her being able to phase abilities into herself? With this latest release showing off Kitty Pryde dealing with the death of not just her family, but her species, she has the motivation. She has gone full bloodlust and resumed a life that we thought was behind her. The world is now causing her to change, or maybe she is just reverting back. She is beyond ready to go to lengths for her sense of justice against the wrongdoings inflicted on her. Hey, isn't that what every villain is all about? A lot of villains arise because of a constant injustice in the world, and then they reach a point called by any means necessary. I will thrive in a sick world or destroy it altogether. And if she becomes this, she won't be easily stopped. How many would be run through during Shadowcat's phase?